All right, and I'll go ahead and share screen. Okay, so first of all, jQuery, what's that? Well, if you just go to jQuery.com, you'll have a website where it'll show you the documentation, go away, and allow you to download the library and so on and so forth. But this is something that I think should be used in CDN. Um, and I think we've done a couple of things with CDN already, including the normalized.css, which we got from CDN.js. And that's where I will go to get it here, and where I recommend you go to get it as well, although you can get it from here as well. But if you need some of the documentation, then this is the place to get it. And they've also got some community here as well if you need to ask questions and so on. I think they do. So anyway, so instead of going to jQuery.com, I'm just going to do a search for jQuery CDN. And they've got it on jQuery.com, like we were saying. But if you scroll down a little bit, the second one, CDN.js. CDN.js, if it's got a library, it's probably going to be one of the top 3 results, no matter what you look for, if you include the word CDN. And so when I tap on that, here we go. And let's go ahead and grab it. So I think we've mentioned at some point the difference between like the minified version and just the jQuery, the regular version. So the minified version in JavaScript means several things, but the 2 most important ones is that all of the white space has been stripped out. All of the carriage returns and all the indenting and anything beyond whatever necessary spaces are in there have been stripped out. And then identifiers have been shortened, usually to just one letter, like variable names and constant names and so on. So if you had a variable named login function or something like that, then they would just convert it to just be function A, like that, or function B or C. So if you ever see like a page of JavaScript and it just looks like one big unholy mess of code, you're probably looking at a minified version, and then this is the uglified version, and then the prettified version is down here. Which one should you get? Doesn't really matter. jQuery is it's a block of code to go through, so unless you're really willing to do a deep dive on it, you might as well just get the minified version. Either one of these will do just fine. Don't worry about these other ones here. I'm going to grab the first one, which is the link URL, copied, and then I'm going to put this into my code. So over here is, hopefully this is, Bispo.js, that's what I named my folder. And I'm going to put this up into the head element. So we already have a JavaScript here that we did on Thursday last. And remember we were saying the script elements that contain the scripts, they need to be either inside the body or inside the head. And for various reasons, it's common to put them either at the very bottom of the body element or the very bottom of the head element. And when you put them at the bottom of the body element is those occasions where you want the whole DOM to load as completely as possible before the script runs. In other cases, if you want the script to load before the page does, then you put it up top here in the head element. And that's what you generally want to do with libraries that you're calling in. You want all the variables and functions from the library available before the DOM loads so that it can then be applied to anything that's necessary as it loads on the page. So I'm going up here into the head element this time and make a script. And source equals, src equals, and paste. So there is that minified JS up on CDN.js, and then just close the script tag. Like we were saying before, it's got an open and closing tag because you can actually put some scripts inside of here as well. I think it's considered bad practice to put a script inside a script that's already sourcing something externally, but I don't know, I can't remember why or what might be the problem with that in particular. But that's okay. Just go ahead and get this in there and just save the document. And before we do anything else, we're going to pop over the browser and open up the console and play around in here and just check out what jQuery is all about. And I think that I think you'll catch on to the idea pretty quickly because, well, it's very nicely written little API. I mean, it works really simply, and it's structured very simply and modularly and fractally. A fractal script or API means that it's nestable. So you have one way that everything works, and then you can nest that one way that everything works inside of each other and come up with these kind of like a Russian boxes or Russian dolls type of structure. So anyway, your script tag up in the HTML, or sorry, the head element should look like this. And then I'm going to pop over the browser and get a try on this. And as I did before, I'm actually going to get this over to Chrome, just because I know how Chrome is going to behave. There we go. All right, cool. And bringing up the console, Control-Shift-I. And you guys remember from last week, this is where we can take a look at the DOM. We can manipulate the DOM. We can manipulate the CSS here. And then we can go to the console, and we can use this as a sandbox to type in JavaScripts, which is what we're going to do right now. And the fact that we're calling jQuery into the page means that all the variables and the functions, the methods that are available to jQuery are now available to us here. So the basic way that you select for elements on the page is by using the $ function. And it looks like this, just $. There's very few pieces of punctuation that are allowed in JavaScript as identifiers. $ is one of them, and as far as I know, the underscore is the only other one. And of course, this is the one that like Lodash uses and so on, but jQuery is the one that popularized using the $. And so it's the $, and then if you put some quotes in there and then put a CSS selector, this is what was really one of the things that was revolutionary about jQuery when it came along, is that all the selectors are just CSS selectors. So whatever's available in CSS is also available here. In fact, jQuery brought in a few selectors before they were actually implemented in CSS. It's been an enormously influential library over the years. So in here, you can put in anything you want, anything that you know is on the page. And it will act as a query selector all, which means it will grab all of them. But it's a little bit different. I mean, jQuery takes them all and puts them into a wrapper so that it can put its own functions onto them that are separate from the way the DOM works natively. But you probably don't need to think about that when you're using it. If I just do like, I know there's some, are there any LIs on the page? Yeah, we got a list somewhere. Yeah, here it is. This is our list, right? So I know the 3 LIs in a UL. So if I just do $ parentheses and then LI in quotes and enter, then you can see this looks a little bit different than if I did a document.query selector all. But there are the 3 LIs. And because it's in the $ function, it's returning something that has different pieces of CSS added to it. So let's grab a couple more. Let's do, well, I don't know, let's do the universal selector to start with, like this. And you can see if you look through here, here are all of the elements that are on the page, just like you would get from a query selector all. And like body. Now see, this is handy because in plain vanilla JS, we would have to do like document.body and then go, it's just, by design, vanilla JavaScript is more verbose. And I think I know why they did that is because they're less likely to clash with some of the shorter names that we would like to use for our own identifiers in our own projects and so on. But as a result of that, typing in vanilla JS can be a little bit finger fatiguing. But whereas here, I'm just using the body CSS selector that's wrapped into a function. Easy peasy. So, okay, so that's selecting things. So how do you do anything with what you select? Well, everything is applied via these methods to this basic function here. So the way you apply a method is using the dot syntax and then the name of the function following the dot. So for instance, if I do something like li.append, and this is one of the methods that's available in jQuery, and let's just do a little hello world. Like so. So li.append hello world, and hit enter, and then if I scroll down, we can see that the hello world has been tacked onto the end of each of these LIs, right? So that's basically the way it works. Let's see. There's text. There's HTML, which is to do like inner HTML. So let's see. Let's say let's do select key here, and we'll do HTML. And in here, you can actually create elements in addition to just text. So let's turn the paragraph into a block quote. And do another hello world block quote. Like so. And there we go. So the paragraph text has been replaced by hello world. And also, you can tell from the formatting, right? This is why we formatted a block quote. So we know there's a block quote in there. And in fact, if you go to the elements here, in the DOM, let's see, we'll be able to see that, there it is down here. Block quote has been added inside of this paragraph. So it's basically, I mean, jQuery is JavaScript, right? It's doing all the same things that you can do in JavaScript. It's just making it a bit easier to write, a little bit less verbose. And back in the olden days, it was also the cross-browser compatibility was a huge benefit. Let's see, what else do we do? Let's go ahead and do, I don't know, let's do body.data is a good one. So some of them have 2 arguments that you can fill, or 2 parameters you can fill with arguments. And this is to, it's to attach data to a particular element on the page. And this is like the property name, and then the second argument is the value. So if I hit enter here, and then if I do body.data and don't put anything in there, then it'll give me a return. And there it is. It's an object, hello, and world. Right? Now this is interesting because HTML5 actually has a way to do this just right in the HTML or with native JavaScript. And it's a little bit different. It's called a data set, but when you apply a data set, that will actually show up here in the DOM. But in this case, that the hello and world is not showing up actually on the body element here. It's just contained within the script here of the page. So, but that's kind of a good one. Let's see, what else do we want to do? Let's attack the li again here, since we're having fun with that one, and let's apply some CSS. So there's a .css method, and also with 2 parameters like this one has. And first you say what property you want, so let's just do a simple color. The second parameter is what the value that you're putting to, not rad, but red. And there we go. Changing the color to red using jQuery.
So I'll give a quick hint to this one right here. One thing that a lot of people would like to do, scammers, right? What they'll do is, let's take, just imagine our ticket packages. Maybe this isn't in jQuery, but just imagine the website, where it says our ticket packages was your bank account value. Mm-hmm. They would actually change that number from your hundreds of thousands of dollars you have to $1 million. Add a 0 to it. Can you show me how?
Well, it doesn't even need to be jQuery. You can do that.
Yeah, just by editing the page. But I mean, something very similar to that too.
Yeah, those are those Indian the Indian call centers.
Yeah. Fun.
It really takes no skill at all. You would think that people who sit around and scam people all day would at least do a little research, you know?
Well, I know in vanilla JavaScript, you can just do text content plus equals and then just add a 0 to it. I'm not sure if you can do that exactly with jQuery. I'd have to type it out to see. But the vanilla JavaScript would be simple enough to do. So like, let's see, document.query selector. This is vanilla JavaScript now. Grabbing the first li, text content plus equals, and then you said to add a 0, right? And there we go. So we just tacked on a 0 there.
Oh, gee whiz! Oh, I'm glad I have so much money now. Oh.
Yeah, right.
Wait a minute. What do you mean you sent me too much money? Oh, now I need to send you a check for that extra. Okay. And you want the Best Buy credit cards. Okay, I'll be right back.
One of the more fun uses for ChatGPT that I've been reading about lately is people coming up with fun ways to mess with scammers. I'm refreshing the page here.
It's always fun to scam the scammer.
Scam the scammers, yeah. Once you know what's happening, then you can have some serious fun with some of them.
Yeah, I always like to get a back door and send them their webcam video and their call records and get a hold of their name. And yeah, that's always fun.
Okay, so I'm going to grab the body element here and put let's put an event on here. So we did events last Thursday. We did on-click events. And so jQuery obviously has those as well. It's just .click though. And here, instead of just putting in a regular string value like we've been doing, we'll put in an anonymous function. And I don't know, I want to nest some of these together, so I'll once again do the li.css and change the color to red. Trying to remember to put the semicolons in there for you guys. Okay, so before I enter, just take a look at, this is what I'm talking about the modularity and the fractal nature of this. On the outer level, you've got the same basic syntax as what you've got going on in here, right? There is the selector followed by a method, and then inside of that anonymous function, there's a selector followed by a method, right? And you can build up huge things. In fact, it can get so large that it created, what was it called? Callback hell, basically, where you can have like this huge string of nested functions inside of each other, and it can get really messy. But anyway, it's one of the nice things about jQuery is that once you see it, you know how it basically works. It's kind of hard to get anything wrong from then on out unless you happen to forget what the particular methods are that you need to use. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter here. And now, if I click on the body anywhere, it should turn these LIs red. There we go. They turn red. So what's another one? And then we'll make this the last one before we get started on our actual demo. Let's go ahead and let's see, what should we do? Well, let's use an each function. So I'm going to let's grab the LIs dot each. And this is another one that has an anonymous function as its argument. So it's basically, it's not like one of the standard methods that just like, yeah, change the CSS or change the display or whatever. This is like the for each loop in JavaScript, except that with the time that this was created in jQuery, I don't think we had a for each loop in JavaScript. I think that came later. So this is very handy to use, very simple. Each console.log this, and there it is, and it gives us those three elements. Let's say we just wanted to get the text content, and let's see, is that going to work? I should be able to do dot text content, but see, text content is vanilla JavaScript. This is one of the only time when jQuery gets confusing is like figuring out which parts of it are vanilla JavaScript and which parts of it are like jQuery land. And then figuring out how they work together. So I can do this, I think, because this is vanilla JavaScript, and yeah, it brings those in. If I wanted to do this line in jQuery, I mean, there is a jQuery method called text, but this isn't going to work because this is not a jQuery object. So let's just try it here, but I don't think this is going to work. Yeah, it doesn't like it. So instead, what you have to do is take this and turn it into a jQuery object by doing the dollar in parentheses around it. And then this should work. Yeah, there we go. So you don't need to remember this stuff right now. Just be aware that there's some weird things that happen with this versus this within parentheses with the dollar function. They do behave a little bit differently from each other. This is vanilla JavaScript, which means that you can't apply the jQuery method to it, but you can turn it into a jQuery object and then apply the jQuery method to it. So that's the only part I can think of that gets a little bit weird sometimes, is understanding how that stuff works. The rest of it's pretty straightforward.
I think you can do colons contains as well.
Oh, contains, yeah. That's one that they're just now trying to add into the CSS as well, but it's not contains, it's has. But it doesn't have support from Firefox yet, which is why I haven't shown it to you guys. But I'm just waiting on it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and hop over to HTML land now that we've taken a little bit of a look at this and how it works. And what I'm going to do here is, so where am I? Here am I. I am going to get rid of the form that's already on there, which is the one, this is what I did for the demo for Friday's class, and so you will have something pretty similar to this, except that I had you do some slightly different things from what I did in the demo. If you've duplicated your folder like I have, then it's not a problem, right? You won't be losing anything because you've already got the other form in your other folder. But if you have not done that, then just take this and, like, instead of deleting it, cut and paste it to a new document so you've still got it. But I do want to get rid of that one so we can do a simpler form on here. And what we're going to do this time is we're going to grab the values using jQuery and do something with them. We'll see how far we get with this. Okay, so first things first, I do have, yeah, I got the jQuery called in here, so that's fine. So I guess the first thing that I want to do is go ahead and build my new form. So the form that I built in before was kind of a, it was a sign-up form. But I'm going to assume that there's already been signing up, like maybe they signed up at the lodge meeting or something like that, and there's just a sign in form here. I'm going to put it in the same place, so underneath this print page button, I'm going to put a new form. And it's going to look a bit like the other one in the sense that it's going to have a field set. And the field set you name by giving it a legend. Something like that. I should at least give the form an ID. ID equals. Now it's going to be the only form on the page, so we could select for it using JavaScript without doing anything else, but it sure is handy to have an ID on there. And in any case, it might not always be the only form on the page. So let's see, let's say sign in. And as I mentioned last week, you will normally also see like the method equals either post or get. And you will also normally see an action equals like process.php or something like that. And this is where this form data will be sent to be processed by some backend script like that. I can leave the method equals post on there, but I am going to take this off because I don't want to get error messages. There we go. And what I'm going to do here, in keeping with like a login form or sign-in form, I'm just going to have a username and password, and that's it. So the username is just going to be an input type equals text. And remember, it has to have a name. Every form has to have a name and a value. But the value sometimes is not hard-coded into an attribute because the value is whatever the user types into the field or whatever the user inputs. So this is going to be like name equals username. And for some forms, you'd have to put like a value equals. But in this case, we're not going to. That's going to be it. Type equals text, name equals username. And the other thing that you should remember from Friday is that you always want to put these inputs into a label. For accessibility reasons, for usability reasons, you want to get these into a label. Now, if you nest the input directly inside of a label, then that's all you have to do to connect them up. There are ways of having a label completely separate from the input. Like you can have an input like way up on a page and then the label somewhere completely different on the page. But then you have to add attributes that connect them together. There's a for attribute on the label, and then there's an ID attribute on the input, and they have to match each other, and then you can do that. But That's like a really, really weird, occasional use case. Almost always you just have the label and the input directly inside of it. So the one thing we're missing here is we need to have some text here. So for the poor user so that they know what to do. Let me go ahead and stop here and save it. See what we've got so far. Let's see, here we are. So there we are, there's the username. And the way that you can tell that your labels are working is if you can focus the field by clicking on the label text. So like if I click on the word username here, it should put the cursor inside of the field, and it has, and that means my label is working. If it doesn't do that, then your label's not working. That's not the only reason to put them in. It's good for screen readers and other forms of accessibility and so on, but that's how you can test them and make sure they work. So pretty much always you're going to start by doing a label right off the bat. So label, and then let's see, we're going to do a password, and then input type equals, and recall there is a password type of input. Okay, do these need to match? No, they do not. Like this guy, these don't match at all, right? It could be my password, it could be PW, it could be any which thing. It just has to have a name of some sort. And then like the text input above it, the value is going to be whatever the user inputs here. And the difference between these guys in the browser is simply that this one you can see the text, and this one you can't. Sometimes you have a little button that says show password, and if you do that, then you just got a little piece of JavaScript or jQuery that just changes the type attribute from password to text, and that's what makes the text visible. And then hide password will once again change the type from password or from text back to password. That's all it is. It's super simple.
But also just be forewarned, just because you can't see the password on the form sign-in, the password is still not encrypted in the stream.
Oh yes,
so it's
that's right.
Their text in the stream, so just a heads up to everybody.
Yeah, no, you're right. That absolutely does not encrypt it anywhere. Okay, let's see here. I guess we need a submit button, and I think that's it. I think that's all we need to do for the moment. Yeah, just a field or a submit button. Now there's a couple of different, I figure I'll go ahead and show this to you as well. There is an input type equals submit that looks like this. And if I put it in that way, then it looks like a button. And it says submit, right? And then I think if you put it in Firefox, it'll say submit query or something like that. So you're allowing the browser, the user agent, to decide what text actually appears there. Although you can put a value in here, as I recall. It's been a while since I've done this. Yeah, and that'll change the text there. And this is the way most people do it, but I don't understand why people do it that way. I really don't. Yeah, it's possible, but why not just do a button? A button inside of... Jeez. I need to slow down here. See, I think I did yeehaw last week. A button inside of a form will automatically submit the form. See, it tried to submit it, and it couldn't find it. So it's getting the error. But I took that off and it's still doing it. Okay, that's cool. So anyway, it's up to you which one you want to use, but I personally think this is, I don't know, it's easier for me to read. It's easier for me to style because it's not another input that I have to distinct from these guys in the CSS. It's just a button. So whatever you guys want to do is fine, but I like this one much better personally. Okay, so I think that's it for, which mouse am I using? There we go. So I'm going to open up the CSS now. And I want to go over some of this a little bit more and change some of it. And for that reason, I can find it here. There we go. Here's the form stuff. I'm going to delete this stuff. You can, if you want, you know how to comment it out if you want to keep that, and so that you can get back to it later on. But I'm going to delete this stuff, and I do want you to either delete yours or comment it out or something so that we can type this again. And it is simple. I want to make it a little bit more responsive than it was yesterday, perhaps. But otherwise, it's going to be much the same. And it's going to be simpler too, because we don't have to worry about doing the attribute selector to separate out the radio button inputs from the text-like inputs. So, but the first thing, like that makes everything horrible here. So let's go ahead and do some of the basic ones again. So the first thing was the field set. And I just did a padding. Did I do 1M, 2M? Can't remember. Maybe it was 2M. Yeah, I guess so. And then it's also going to need a margin top.
How come he can't hear us?
Sorry, what was that? Okay, I missed it. So generally what you want to do is you want to get these guys next to each other. I've never understood why, like in the default.
Oh, there he is. Can you hear us now?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's going on?
You're
Nope,
muted.
I can't hear you.
Uh-oh.
Unmute yourself.
I'm trying to.
You're
There we
muted.
There you go.
Thank you. I have no idea how I did that. I
Yeah,
don't even
you
have-
were.
3 minutes.
What's that?
Yeah, you were frozen for a good 5 minutes there.
Oh, jeez.
So yeah, you're
Yeah,
gonna have to
last
go
thing we
on
heard was the submit button.
Yeah. Submit. Yeah.
All right. I don't think I've done anything since then. I was explaining some stuff, but I have no idea how I muted myself. I didn't even have this tab up.
Well, it wasn't.
Yeah, it also
initially.
froze.
Yeah, you were frozen, and then when you came back and the stream was steady again, you couldn't hear us.
Okay, so I need to share again. Thank you for letting me know, and apologies for that. Okay, so I think that you were here for this much. Yeah, we did the
Yeah,
button.
we were there for the submit button, and after that it froze.
Oh, okay. So what I did is I went over to the CSS file and I deleted all of the stuff that I had for the form. And I just realized that that means I'm going to, do I have stuff in here in one of these media queries as well? No, I guess I don't.
Not for the form.
Interesting.
So delete everything in form for CSS.
Yeah, or if you prefer to, if you don't want to like delete all your work, then you can comment it out. So like instead of deleting, you can just go ahead and just wrap it in a pair of these guys. I do that all the time if I want to try out a different version of CSS than the one I did yesterday. So either which way.
Yeah, I went ahead and commented it out just in case there's some reuse.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. So it's one of the weird things about HTML that it does this. Like it creates the forms in a way that it just, like you see how weird this gets sometimes? I don't understand like a plain paragraph or a UL or something like that, or a block quote in plain HTML without any styling. It might not look pretty, but it's readable at least. But like this is not readable. Like I have no idea what password is supposed to connect with. Does it go with this field? Does it go with this field? What the heck is happening here? It's just one of the weirder things in the way that HTML is formatted natively by the browser. So when you delete all of your CSS, you're likely to get something nasty like this. So let's go ahead and get some of it back in there again. So this is where I was going. So the first thing is to select for field set and get some padding on it. I did 2M last time, I think. That doesn't fix the real problem. And then a margin top, like the other elements here on the page, 1M. There we go. So that's just to kind of get things started here. But the main thing is getting these guys oriented so that we know that the label text is always going to be next to the input. Look at this. It puts the submit button like right next to this. It's a mess, right? So the easiest way to do that now is going to be with Flexbox. Before Flexbox came around...
Back.
Am I frozen again?
And muted.
There he goes.
I'll keep on doing this over and over again. Thanks for letting me know.
Is it storming over there or something?
Nope. I don't know what's going on. Okay, so this is all I've done so far. Hopefully you saw that much. And now I'm going to apply a display flex to the label. So this is yet another reason to put labels around these forms, and the text is accessibility, usability, and it makes the CSS easier. So that's 3 big hits for the win. So we'll do a label and display flex. But to start with, I'm going to do it. Hello? Are you guys there?
Are you good? Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay.
You're good.
To start with this time, I'm going to do a flex direction column like this, so that the label text is above the input field. And I think that this is appropriate for a narrow screen like this, right? And by the way, this is another way to get a narrow screen is simply open up the console, right? And it gives you this kind of approximation here. So let's just put some margin or padding, or let's put margin on those fields. So this is going to be input selector, and let's see, margin. And where do we want a margin? We want a little bit of margin top, I think. I think the text is a little bit close, but then more margin underneath. The point is to get like a visual connection between the label text and the input. So a little bit more above than below. So let's see, top, let's try 1M, that's probably too much. 0 to the right, 0.5M bottom, and 0 left. You guys know how that works, right? 4 values, top, right, bottom, left, for margins, padding, or borders. And yep, that's too much. So maybe, oh, wait a second. I'm putting them in the wrong order too. I don't know what I'm thinking. Let's try it the other way around. Let's try 0.5M here and then 1M below. I just did like the opposite of what I said I was going to do. There we go. That's a little bit better. Oh, that's probably a little too much, but that's fine. And what we're going to do is we're simply going to change it so that when we go out to 600 pixels wide and wider using media query, that the label text shows up on the left instead. So that's simple enough. We've already got a media query here. Our phone landscape. And I'll go ahead and put it, try to put it in the same order in which you got it upstairs there. So it's going to be right above nav elements. So in here we will do, let's see, what are we going to do? We're going to do label and change the flex direction. So this label up here, flex direction column, and we're going to change that here to flex direction row, like that, and then that's what we're looking for. So in here at the very narrow widths, the label text appears above, and then as you widen up, the label text appears to the left. Or, as you might recall, in the case of radio buttons and checkboxes, the text would be to the right instead. Those are ones like if you were doing, I wouldn't recommend changing those at all as far as media queries go. I would not ever have like the text above a radio button. I don't think that would make any sense. But for text fields and text-like fields, yeah, this makes sense. So let's go ahead and fix it because right now it looks horrible. And so let's see, what did we do up here? First of all, you check it and see what's going on. There it is. Blah, blah, blah. And it's basically just this margin. That's what we have to fix. So the input, yeah. I'm trying to figure out what's the best order in which to do this stuff. But let's go ahead and just do this. I'm just going to override this stuff so that there is no margin top, because that is what's pushing this input field down from where it's why it looks like these have different baselines. So let's go ahead and do that here on an input. And we will do a margin to override the other one. So 0 top, 0 right. We'll keep the point, or what was it, 1 on M on the bottom and then 0 left. So there we go. Now there's two more problems with this. One is that the text fields are not stretching across. And so we're going to fix that with this input. We're going to do flex 1. As you recall, this is a shorthand for flex grow, flex shrink, and flex basis. But if you just remember flex 1, if you want everything to be stretchy, or the things that you want to be stretchy, do flex 1 on, and it will make them stretchy like this. Now, this is getting a little bit long, but I would probably solve this by actually making the width of the whole form element a little bit smaller. So maybe we do just inside the media query, maybe we do like a form or field set. Let's do the field set since we were already doing that one. And we could do like a max width and then say like, I don't know, 65%. This will be 65% of the parent element. So you see it narrows it down. And then of course you could use a margin 0 auto like we did with the body element before to center it or something like that. Except I took the top margin off. But anyway, that's how you would solve that, I think, is to contain the entire field set instead of adding more padding on the inside of it, I think. So let me put that 1M back in here and then auto and then 0. There we go. That pushes it back down a little bit. Now the other thing, one of the reasons I was hesitating is because you see where the label text is just butting right up against the input. And yeah, you could fix that by going in here and giving it a slight margin left here. But there was something I was forgetting about Flexbox. And by the way, this works for Flexbox and for CSS Grid if you decide to teach yourselves that later on. There's a gap property that you can do this kind of more easily, I think. So the gap property you would put inside the parent element, which would be the label in this case. And whatever you say for gap is going to be the width of the gutter in between the elements of the flex box. So if I do gap like, I don't know, 0.2M or something like that, and save over here, you see how it just added a little bit of space there? If we do gap 0.5M, this is going to be too much, but makes it a little bit, actually that's not too much, that's okay. So that's another good one to know. I had forgotten about this one before. I think I'd only used it once or twice. And so I was remembering now when I took a look at, I remembered it at some point yesterday and I looked it up and oh yeah, that's right, this exists. So I wanted to show you that too. So yeah, you could have done it by just adding a little bit of margin here. But sometimes you have a whole bunch of elements like in the navigation, you just want to have like a certain small distance between them and you just use the gap property here under the parent element. So there we go. And I think that's all that we really need for the CSS for right now. It's very simple stuff. Now, as you guys learned last week, I think, whenever, in the absence of anything else going on, whenever you submit a form, the page refreshes on you. So if I tap on this, it's either going to give me an error message like that. New username and new password. That's interesting. I thought I deleted that other form, didn't I? Oh, hang on a second, folks.
Hey, Mr. Biswell, did we delete the gap?
No, I left the gap in there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right there. It's just that the browser is, these are, by the way, these are get values. If you see the question mark and then these kinds of name value pairs up here with equals, with ampersands separating them, these are get values. So if you've got a get method equals get on your form, or if you don't have a method at all, then it will post this stuff in the address bar. So anything that's at all sensitive, like password information, see it's showing me the password and everything. I might be at Starbucks, people might be looking over my shoulder, or might be in the workplace. You always want to make sure you do method equals post and post something to the server side instead of get values for anything that's sensitive at all. Otherwise, you can just use the get values. But the reason why I'm tripping out right now is because these are the names of the form inputs on the other form that we did, right? The sign-up form that we did last week where we had new username, new password, and new email. I haven't done any of them on this guy here, and I thought that I had deleted the other form entirely from this page. And I have, so what in the world is going on here? Now see, those get values are showing up here as well. I wonder why. Yeah, it was showing the old form. You saw when I hit the back button, it was showing the old form again. Let's try this again. Okay, now it's not happening. Oh, but it brought this in again as soon as I hit the back button. That's what did it. I hit the back button, it brought me back to here. So, I'll try not to do that anymore. So anyway, that's what was happening. It probably was not happening with you guys, but if it was, that's the reason why. If it's in the same browser window, yeah, don't worry about it. It's fine. Sorry about that. I just had to get that figured out. Okay, so let's actually do something with this now. Now I have put method equals post on this form, this new form, so those get values should not show up in the address bar if we're actually using this form. So let's go ahead and do something with it. So again, if you submit it, it will either just refresh the page or it will try to submit it to another page and fail. Let's see what happens if I get rid of this method equals post. I wonder if then it will just refresh the page and that's it. I bet you it will. So I'm going to refresh this and then hit the EHA, and now it's still giving me get values now because I took the method equals post off of there. So now it's get, but at least it's the right ones. At least it's the right form this time. So that's basically the difference. That's a good one to know. That one will come up, by the way, in job interview questions as well. What's the difference between get and post? There you go. The get values will show up in the address bar and are unsafe to use. Okay, so let's do something with this. What I want to do is ultimately, I want to grab the values from this form and spit them out to the console. But in order to do that, I can't just have this submit function working as it does now because it refreshes the page entirely whenever you submit this. And we already know if we have a value in here, Bob equal Bob, okay, in this case I can type in the variable name Bob and it will give me the return value. But if I refresh the page and try to grab that variable name again, it doesn't know what it is. Bob is not defined. Same thing happens with these forms. Once you submit something, there's no way to grab the data and keep it here on the page. Now, if you're using get values, they will show up here. But like I said, with password information, you don't really want to do for that to be happening. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put the method equals post back on there to make sure that the username and password don't show up in the address bar here. So how do we make it so that when the user submits this form that it doesn't try to refresh the page and we lose all of the data that the user input for us? Well, here's where our jQuery comes in. Let's see, we've got the CDN coming in here. Let's check our JavaScript file here. We've already got several things happening here. And I think I mentioned last week, normally you would want to kind of separate these out in a modular way. So like your print page script would be on a separate JS file from like your copyright versus your image swap versus your mobile nav dropdown. But I'm just kind of throwing them all on the same page here just to keep things a little bit simpler. But if you do that, then at least comment them as we're doing here. So I'm going to say jQuery form processing or something like that. Okay, so there is a method in JavaScript called prevent default. And you can apply it to hyperlinks so that when the user clicks on them, they don't actually go where they're supposed to be going or where they want to be going. And you can apply it to any kind of thing, actually page loading, anything like that. And we can apply it to this form submitting as well. So it looks like this. E dot, no, prevent default. And in order for this to work, you have to enclose it within an event handler that passes this E variable into it, which is E just stands for the event itself. An event is when like the user clicks on something or something like that. So let's see what that looks like in jQuery. So when we were playing around in the sandbox, we did do a click event, right? We did one so the body element, whenever it was clicked on, the color of the CSS of those list items turned red, right? So it's going to look like that, except we're going to attach it to the form, and the form is sign in, okay? So that's the ID that I gave this, so that's the one that I'm going to target, the CSS selector there with my jQuery sign in. So hash sign dash in, right? There's the CSS selector that we would be using. But instead of click, I'm going to do submit. There is like before last week we were doing these on clicks. In native JavaScript there's also an on submit, there's an on load, etc. And jQuery just shortens them a little bit. So instead of on submit, it's just submit. The rest of it looks the same. It's going to be an anonymous function. There's the E variable that gets passed into the function. Oops. And then inside the code block of this anonymous function, here's where we put that E dot prevent default. Don't forget the parentheses. It's a method. It won't run without those. So just go ahead and do that much. I'll leave this code up for just a moment. Do that much and then pop over to the browser and see if you can click on that form without getting it to send anywhere. All right, I'm going to try it now. So going over here and refresh the page, and I'm going to tap on this and see the page does not refresh. It does not reload. It doesn't take me back up to the top of the page. I can put stuff in here, click on that, doesn't take me anywhere. So that is a very useful one to know. And like I said, you can also put it on hyperlinks. So if there were a home button that you didn't want to actually do anything, because you're already on the home page or something like that, then you could do an e.preventDefault as a method for like a click event for that hyperlink if you wanted to. But in this case, it's submitting the form, so it's the submit event. Now, a word about this. That prevents everything from happening, which means that it has to be used with care. One of the things you guys learned last week is that you could put like a required attribute on your inputs, right? I could put required on both of these. And if I did that, then the form would not submit if the user had failed to fill out either or both of these fields. But in this case, nothing is, oh, it's actually working. I'm rather surprised, actually. Okay, never mind. I was about to say tell you that those wouldn't work anymore, but it looks like they will. Maybe I was testing it in a different browser or something. I'll have to check that out. So anyway, I'll check that out and get back to you guys on that.
I was actually playing around with the chapter 19 assignment last week, and I was trying to get some built-in validation based on the required aspects of the form, so that essentially what I was doing was like I was adding a separate page stating you've submitted your data or trying to get an alert, and without using a third-party API, for whatever reason, I couldn't figure out how to get that in-house validation.
So if you're using vanilla JavaScript, I would do it something like this. I would say, assuming that you have, let inputs equal document dot query selector all input, right? And then for let input of inputs, so loop through them, and then say something like if input dot value equals nothing or null or something like that, then validation message here. So I think this might be the piece that you were looking for here, is just checking to see if the value is empty.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was missing, because I defined the function and did the for loop, but I couldn't, for whatever reason, I couldn't get it to check to make sure that the page itself, the requirements were met to then pass over into validation. It was just immediately redirecting and alerting whether the form validated or not. So, but yeah, that's what I was looking for.
So you'd have to do this, and it would have to be inside of like a click or some kind of event that would prevent default from submitting. And you'd want to go here and remove the required attributes, because what you'd be trying to do would be effectively taking the place of those, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah, I guess. But my point was that they would try to get them to work together, and you can do that with APIs. But I was just trying to do it with straight up JavaScript, and it wouldn't work.
Okay. So let's see. So if you did want to keep those, I love stuff like this.
I'm sorry, I'm like making you go off on a tangent.
No. Like I said, I love stuff like this. Okay, so what I would do is I would go there, like get this activated, and then go to the elements and try to find that. Oh, shoot, it just disappeared, wasn't it? Because that element should show up in the DOM as it appears, if I'm not mistaken. Let's crack all this stuff open here. And it'll be
I
the
thought
first
so
label.
too, but I couldn't.
And then click on it to try to get this to stay open. And then try submitting. And nope, it's not showing up here, and I can't right click to inspect. Okay, so yeah, I don't know what kind of element. It must be in the shadow DOM somewhere. So yeah, this is
because that was the problem. Aside from just it's simply having the required attribute to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no real way to call to that response and then to set metrics based on that pop-up window.
No, but you could create your own pop-up window, but you're talking about making these.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I was just wanting to see if I could do it with just that, and it didn't work.
Interesting question. I've never done it before, and I'm not immediately coming up with an answer since it didn't show up here.
But yeah, so I messed around with it for a few hours. I couldn't get it to work, and I wasn't going to put an API in it. There's just no point in doing all that kind of work. I just wanted to play with it and see if I could get away with it.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm going to check it out now if I remember to, because that's interesting. This is the kind of stuff I can just lose days figuring out how to do it.
Same.
Okay, cool. Let's get back to this stuff. So I'm going to delete this stuff here. So I'm not using it. Okay, so we prevented the default. So when the user taps on this, nothing happens except they do this and then that. So I put in all my stuff and I submit, but it's not submitting because we prevented the default. So that's what this guy is right here. So let's start with something that's super simple and just log the values to the console. So this is something you guys know that you can type stuff in here and get it to log to the console automatically. As soon as you're in your sandbox here, you can just do, I want to see what's the return value of jQuery body, and there it is. So if you want to get stuff to log to the console, I can't remember if we've done this or not, but I think maybe we haven't. There's a console object that you can access here in JavaScript, and various methods that can be put on here, including most famously and commonly used console.log. So if you do like console.log yeehaw, and then whenever you tap on this, then okay, it makes me doing this, and then blah blah, and then yeehaw, there it is. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab the form values instead. So for this one, jQuery is often shorter and more concise than vanilla JavaScript, but not always. Sometimes vanilla JavaScript actually has a simpler solution than the jQuery. So in this case, this is one of those cases where there are certain properties that attach to input elements, to form elements, that are very short and sweet, in particular name and value. So this element here, this input element, has a property called name that grabs the value of this name attribute. And it has a property value, which can grab the value. Now the value, again, is not typed in, it's what the user enters, so that's what it's going to grab. So anyway, we're going to do a console.log, and let's go ahead and do, let's see, we got to loop through them first. Come on, Bisco, wake up. So let's go ahead and loop through them. So we could do what I was just doing downstairs. We could do for like let input of inputs and do that whole thing. But let's do the jQuery each loop because that's kind of cool. So we'll do input, right? And there's just two of them. Dot each function. We did this in the console just a little bit ago. So we're going to be looping through those inputs. And in here, we'll do a console.log, this.name. Remember, this is vanilla JavaScript. If it were jQuery, we'd be doing this, like wrapping it into that jQuery function. But with vanilla JavaScript, we can do this.name. Remember, it's that name property, and this.value, like so. So just to show you what it would look like in the jQuery version, it's either longer or almost, I think it is actually longer. You'd have to do like this dot attr, which means get attribute, name, and this dot val. So that would be the jQuery way of doing it. And as you can see, it's longer than this one. That's unusual though. Usually jQuery is shorter than vanilla JavaScript. Not quite always. So I'm just going to do it this. Console.log, this.name, this.value, save. And let's go ahead and try typing in some values here. So I'm going to say...
You mind going back to that jQuery line real quick? Can you just Control Z it? Just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Sorry.
No worries. I'm trying to remember semicolons for you guys. I give myself a B.
Got it.
Cool.
Thank you.
So maybe I'll just comment this out instead of deleting it. I really wish...
Do we need to have that one in?
No, you can get rid of it.
Okay. Because I'm about halfway through typing that one out, and I was like, do I need to?
Yeah, okay, let's get rid of it again. Okay, so just this guy.
Okay.
This.name,
In that case, I'm caught up, I think. Let me check my...
Oh,
that there, that goes there. Why is it mad at that one? Maybe once I clear this out, it'll forgive me for it. Yeah, there we go. Now it's happy. All right, I'm done.
We want our code editors to be happy. Okay, so let's try it out now. Pop over here, give yourself a username and any old password. And submit. And there we go. There's my username. That's quite a password, isn't it? There's the username and password. And because we did the prevent default, this stuff's not disappearing.
Good luck hacking that password.
Yeah, good luck typing it again.
That's what you have Google for.
True.
That's what I call a forehead roll on the keyboard.
Or a cat walking across.
Used to have something like that for the old, military passwords. You know how strict they are with their passwords. Jesus.
I can imagine. Okay, so there it is. It's still not in a usable form, though. We can't, we got it to log this to the console, but we can't actually use it. Like I can't type in like, oh, I want to get username back, and it's like, nope, it's not existing. It got spat out, and then that's it. It's done with it. So let's put it in a form that we can use. Now this one I'm not going to delete. I'm going to comment this one out just with a single line comment. And let's do something different with it. So there is something built into the browser that you can access via JavaScript called local storage. There's also session storage. They're a little bit different from each other. But it's a way that, for instance, a shopping cart could be maintained for a time at least without actually accessing the database or the back end. If you just wanted something that's just kind of temporary, the user can do this, and then once they click on purchase, then it goes to the back end and get dealt with the e-com and all that. So let's do local storage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say local storage. And it looks like this. Remember the intercap convention in JavaScript. So when you have two words that get smashed together, almost always, 99.5% of the time, it's going to be in camel case like this. Local storage dot set item. There's another example of the camel case, capital I. And we're going to say this dot name, comma, this dot value, just like we did for the console.log arguments. If it seems like, oh, wait a minute, we're going a little too deep down the rabbit hole here, I'm not going to show you very many things like this, but this is a really, really useful one to know.
You're not scaring me. I live in a rabbit hole.
Sweet. It's the way to be. Okay, let's pop over here. I'm going to refresh the page even though I didn't need to, and I'm going to put in this stuff again. Do the Joker, and another long password, and then yeehaw, and now it's not getting logged to the console anymore. We could have left that one uncommented, by the way. It's fine if they both happen. But check this out. I can type in local storage here, just by itself, and oh, look at there. Username, do the Joker, password, and that's the crazy password that I typed in. Now it's available after it's been submitted, whereas the console.log was not. Now this is in a form where I can use it whenever I want to. So let's do local storage dot username. These are stored as objects, or properties rather, on the local storage object. There it is. There's the value for it. And now I'll do local storage dot password, and there's that crazy password that I just typed. Okay, I'm going to show you two more things, and then we're going to take a break. I'm going to refresh.
I didn't know space was a valid character.
Yeah, I think it is actually. So check this out. Remember before when we refreshed the page and this stuff went away? Go ahead and hit Control R, refresh the page, and then type in local storage. It's still there. Like so. It's still there. It is stored for a certain amount of time within the browser as long as this page isn't completely closed out. In fact, let me show you something else. I'm going to grab this URL here, I'm going to copy it and open it up in a brand new window. Open up the console and type in local storage. And there they are. There's the password and the username. Notice in a JavaScript object, this is actually a good lesson. A JavaScript object does not guarantee the order of the property and value pairs. So before, the other page was showing it username and then password. This one's showing it password and then username. Just one of those weird things. But
Right. It stores it essentially like a cookie, right? Where
it's very similar. Yeah, it's similar to a cookie. But it only accesses stuff that's been entered into via JavaScript.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very similar to that. Now session storage is very similar to this, except that if we use session storage, then when I opened up a new window and tried it, those values would be gone. It would only be
Right.
within the same tab.
I guess has even closer attributes to cookies, but well, depending on the type of cookie. Anyways, moving on.
Moving on. But yeah, you can also deal with cookies in JavaScript, which is all kinds of fun. So yeah, this is the way to do it. So this is lots of fun. We can store stuff in there. It'll remain in the browser, etc. So yeah, and so what we'll do after the break is we'll come back and I'll show you how to build just a very, very simple login and logout system using this, without ever connecting to the back end. Now, normally, of course, we'd have to connect. We'd have to like check these values against a database and make sure, oh yeah, does this person like actually exist? Does their password match what we've got stored for them? But we're not doing any of that stuff here, of course. We're just doing.
Did you mean Active Directory?
Stuff. What's that?
Did you mean Active Directory?
Active Directory.
Really, no. It's more like database stuff, like SQL.
Mm.
You have like what is it? I'm brain farting right now.
Yeah, we dealt with some of that stuff last semester, right? When we did authentication in the database class. So this would just get sent to the backend somewhere, probably to a PHP or a Node page that would process this, spit it back to the database, which, by the way, it doesn't have to be a database. It could also be a flat file, like a JSON file or something like that, or an XML file. But it would be matching these values against something somewhere else that was not contained within this page, so that hackers wouldn't just have like immediate access to looking at it by looking at the source code. So anyway.
I don't know why it took me this long to. You have like Postgre and MySQL, Oracle, Mongo, Maria, all kinds of different database services.
Yep, that's right. Okay, so the stuff that we just did is essentially your final exam review. Before we go any further, that's why it's a good place to take a break right here. So let me go over what we just did. So I had us rebuild some forms here. That's why I deleted the other ones, so that we could build these from scratch. So you could see this again. And it's just text-like inputs. I've taken the radio buttons out, even though those were in there. And the last time I ran this final exam, there was a component that had the radio button group, but it was roundly bombed on the test. So we're going to keep it as text inputs for this, and text-like inputs, right? So that means type equals text, type equals password, type equals email. Those are the three that we actually went over in recording and demo and so on. And then being able to build a field set, name the field set with the legend, right? Build a button to submit the form, those kinds of things, right? So know how to do this. Right click, left click. There we go. Know how to do this. And what did we do after that? Well, we went to the CSS and we redid the CSS for this. That's another reason why I did that. Where'd it go? It was right above nav, wasn't it? I thought it was. Oh, it was above figure. Here we go, these guys. So see how simple? These guys right here. So know how to make it so that when you behave responsively, right? Text appears above the inputs, and then when you widen out to 600 pixels wider, text appears to the left of the inputs with some slight modifications to make things look okay. And so that was this part right here. We didn't actually build the media query, but I think at this point you guys know how to do it. We just put it into the existing media query, and they were these guys right here. Field set, label it, input, just like before. Then, actually we did this first, but logically, then bring in the jQuery CDN via a script tag in the bottom of the head element. And then in the JavaScript, in the jQuery, this part here, know how to do a submit event on the form, how to prevent it from submitting by using e.preventDefault. That means knowing, yeah, you got to pass this variable in there. And then know how to loop through these guys and spit out the result to local storage. I'm going to go ahead and uncomment this. You should really know how to do both of those things. How does that sound? Does that sound doable? So forms,
Yeah.
forms in the HTML, Flexbox and Media Query in the CSS, and then this stuff in the jQuery. The submit event, preventing the default, and then logging the values of each form to the console and putting it in local storage. I think that's a good amount. So
You
take
should give
screenshots
us-
if you want to, but this will all be on the recording. I'll get this posted for you guys ASAP. So that's what I'm planning. That's my evil plan for Thursday.
You should give us the grading rubric for it too,
Hmm.
so we know what points are attributed where.
All right, I'll do it.
If you don't mind.
No, you're right. I'll do it. That's a good idea. I should be able to get that done tonight, in fact. Cool.
Awesome.
Good suggestion. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and take a break and stop the recording and get this sucker posted for you guys.